Okay, so the stream has now been started, the YouTube as well. So I think we can now start. So the way we are planning to conduct this session is that we will first walk you through the problem statement that we have released. The theme for the project of this term is Kanban. And once we are done walking through that project statement, we can take up any questions that you may have one by one. I hope this should be okay with everyone.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So I will share my screen. Uh, all right. So as you all know that the theme of project for this term for modern application development 2 course is Kanban application. So those who have already completed their modern application development 1 course in the last term, that is in May 22 term, they would already have created a project uh, based on the technologies that are being taught in MAD 1 course to create this Kanban application as their course project. So this time, this is just an extension to what you would have done before, and you would be adding a lot more things to your previous state of your application, and you will probably be required to change the architecture of your application as well with the technologies that you will be learning in this modern application development 2 course. So let us first see that what are the frameworks that you are going to use for this particular project. Now, while walking through the frameworks or the technologies, a few of those things may sound something like you would not have heard about them before. But for now, you can just interpret them as it is, as they are written here. And once or as we will progress into the course, you will start learning about what all these things are and why do we need them. So the very first thing is the API. So since this time we want you to make all of the rendering happen at the client end. What happened in your Mat 1 project was that all of the rendering was happening on the, all of the hydration was happening on the server side using Jinja 2 templating. So this time what we want to do is we want to offload a server and we want all of the rendering to be done on the client end, and we just want to communicate with the backend only when required. That means whenever we need some data to be shown on the front end, that's the only thing where we will be requiring uh, the help of the backend so that we can fetch the data and can use it accordingly. So Flask has to be used for the API purpose. That means your backend must be built using Flask. Vue.js is something that is introduced as a JavaScript reactive framework in this course. I hope the week 3 content has already been released and you all would have seen at least a few of those lectures and would have gained a basic understanding of what Vue.js framework is. However, week 4 is going to be all about Vue.js. So there you are going to learn all of the constructs that are related to this particular framework. So this is what you are required to use in your front end. So it can also be used with the CDN version of it. That means you just need to uh, put the CDN version of it in your HTML file, and you should be able to use the Vue code for your application. The other way to use it is basically the CLI version of it. That might look a little bit complex in the beginning, but once you get started with it, it will become more comfortable for you while working with it. But this is something that is not mandatory for this project, and you are free to choose with what a mechanism you want to create your project. You can go by CDN or you can go with CLI as well in case you find it interesting or easier to use. So you can take a call here, and it's left up to you as of now. Jinja 2 templates can be used, but they should not be used in the UI. So what are the different places where Jinja 2 templates can be used? Uh, well, we'll talk about those while discussing about the requirements for this project. So there will be something called report generation for each user on a monthly basis. So there you can probably make use of Jinja 2 templates if required, but it must not be used in the UI very strictly. Apart from that, you can use a CSS framework called Bootstrap in order to make your application aesthetically pleasing. SQLite has to be used as your database backend. Redis has to be used for caching. Redis and Celery have to be used for batch jobs. Now, these are the things that you may not be very familiar with right now. But yeah, as I mentioned before, right now you can just understand them as it is. And once these things will be introduced into the course, you will get to know that why you need Redis for caching, why you need Celery for batch jobs, and whatever things are related to these. And apart from that, it should be possible to run all of the demos on the student's computer, which should either be a Linux-based system or should be able to simulate the same. The reason we are saying that is because there are a few services in the technologies that are mentioned for this particular course that will not directly work on the Windows. So you will have to somehow simulate a Linux kind of environment. So that's why we are asking you here to present your project on your local machine also, or in fact we'll recommend you to do so. It can also be done on Rapalite, but it will be a very complex process. It will be a complicated process. We'll be showing you that how such things can be integrated on Rapalite as well. But again, the recommended way for you to present your project on your local machine and try to use Rapalite as much as possible. So if you are using Windows system, well, I suppose or I believe that most of you would be using Windows. So in that case, you can enable the WSL service in your Windows system. So for that, you must have at least Windows 10 in order to enable WSL. Okay, so this is basically the basic idea of this Kanban application. So why do we need it, or why do we use it? So it is basically used for tracking tasks. Just like you would have seen that quantified self application, the idea was something similar. That app was used to track basically multiple habits or daily activities of a user. Similarly, Kanban can be used for a similar theme. So the theme for which we are using it here is to basically track tasks that can be occasional or that can be daily activities based. So what happens here is a board consists of multiple lists here, or consists of multiple vertical lists. So just assume it, a board having multiple lists all together in that board, and each of that list can basically have a number of cards in it. So what is going to happen is a user should be, or user should have the ability to create multiple lists on that board, and that list is basically going to refer to a particular category or a particular group. So let's say you basically create a category, or let's say a list with name called daily task. Okay, now within that list, what you can do is you can add multiple cards that are related to that particular category you have created that list for. So ultimately it should happen, but of course if a user wants to put any card that is not relevant to that particular group or category, that can also happen. But yeah, I'm talking about the ideal case. So let's say you create a list or a category with the title daily activities. So what you can do is, what type of cards you can put under that category is that had I done any exercise today, or basically had I completed my dinner before 9 p.m. or had I completed my breakfast before 8 a.m. in the morning. So you can put things like that. And what should happen is each of that card should have the ability to change its status from one thing to another. For example, when you will create that card, definitely you are creating it so that you want to track it sometime later. So the moment you are creating that card, the status of that card would be pending, right? Because it has to be completed. The task has to be completed. Now, while creating that card, you also have to put a or associate a deadline with that particular card, that the user should be able to complete this task within this given time. And if the user is not able to complete that task within the mentioned timeline, in that case, you should be able to change the status of that card to something related to overdue. That means the deadline has already been passed and the user was not able to complete it within the given time. Similarly, if the user was able to complete that task within the time mentioned, in that case, you can change the status of that card from pending to probably completed. So there can be multiple statuses that you can think of. A few of the statuses that I can mention you right away are basically pending state. One can be completed state. One other state can be overdue state, when the user has not completed the task within the given timeline or deadline. So these are the different statuses that you can make use of while building this application. So as you can see here, that each list is going to have certain attributes. One is ID, One is name. You can also think of any other attributes that you can have as part of your list model. Similarly, the cards can have attributes like title, content, deadline, completed flag that is going to vary according to the time and the list it belongs to. So what should happen is that the system should automatically capture the card created date time and also the card last updated date time. Of course, if the user has to create those cards, so the system should be able to capture the timestamp at which that card was created or at which the card was updated, or even if its deadline was updated. Apart from that, the system should be able to automatically capture the task completed date time. So here, what can happen is that let's say the deadline for a few cards have already been passed and the statuses for those cards have not been changed. So you have to probably think of some mechanism through which, or you can either have a bad job here. What that is going to do is that is going to pass through the list of all of the cards that are available in your database and is going to check the deadline for each of those. Whichever card has or whichever card is basically overdue at that particular moment, then the system should be able to change the status of those cards from pending to whatever relevant status it belongs to. Apart from that, the system should be able to track the progress over time and should be able to show the graphs or trend lines as part of the summary for this application. So just like you would have done in your Madman project in order to show some kind of summary, here also we expect you to have a summary page where all of the stats or all of the graphs or any type of representation that you can think of, uh, you can create those and you can show those things to the user for easy analysis of the user, so that user can understand that how he or she has performed over a certain time period, or maybe of a month, of a week, or whatever the time period is. So the terminology, I hope you should all be able to understand this by now, that it is basically a board which is having multiple lists, or instead I would say multiple vertical lists. Each list is itself a list of tasks, that the tasks that correspond to a common category or a common group. The card here is can be represented as a task here, and the movement should be possible across the list. For example, if you have created a card in list A and you want to shift or move that card from list A to some other list, then you should be able to do that as well. And summary page, as we have discussed, all of the stats or all of the analysis that is related to a user should be shown on this kind of summary page, so that user can understand his or her performance over a certain time. So we have also given some reference material here to understand what Kanban is, or whatever similar products are available in the market. We also have provided a wireframe, but we'll probably look at this wireframe at the end of this PPT. Firstly, we are going to talk about the requirements. So these are the things that you will be evaluated on. So these are basically the core functionality. As you would know that we generally divide all of these functionalities into three categories. One is the core functionality. Second is the recommended functionality. That means that may not be as important as the core features are, but maybe at the end of the day, they will help you gain some extra marks, directly or even indirectly. And the third category is basically the optional category that is not going to help you in gaining any extra marks, but will be good for long-term learning perspective. So the core requirements for this application are user login, main board with list management, card management, summary page. We'll be talking about each of these core requirements in much more details in the next set of slides. And you will be required to set up a few batch jobs as well. So export jobs, reporting jobs, alert jobs, and these are the things that are to be considered as the core functionality for this application. So we'll start with the login component here. So in the management project, we told you that we are not very much concerned with the security, but the things have changed in this course. The security is one of the major concerns of the application. So here we expect you to be using a proper login framework in order to set up the authentication for this application. So here we expect you to have the password field as well, which was not mandatory in your management project, but this time it is mandatory. It is also required for you to use either token based or cookie based authentication in order to set up the authentication for this application. And accordingly, you should be having a suitable model for the user with whatever attributes that you find relevant. Now the board, as we understood that the board is what? Board is basically a collection of collection of vertical list. So what, as the first point says, that it is basically a view that has multiple lists. Uh, it should have the ability to add or manage a list. That means the user should be uh, given the ability to perform CRUD operations on the list here. User should also be able to perform CRUD operations on the card. Well, we'll talk about them in the next set of slides. Uh, Apart from that, there should be an ability to move cards between the list. And of course, there should be an ability to identify the statuses of each of the cards that are available on your board. So as we discussed that each list is going to have multiple tasks or multiple cards, and each of that card is going to have a uh, particular status at a time. Those statuses can be pending, completed, overdue, or things like that. So here we talk about list management. That means the user should be able to perform CRUD operations on the list. That means user should be able to create a new list. Now, this is something that we generally mention in each of our problem statements, that the storage should be able to handle multiple languages. And we also suggest you to use UTF-8 encoding, since we are asking you to use SQLite as your data storage. So you don't need to worry about this point here, as the default encoding for uh, SQLite database is UTF-8 itself. So it will be taken care of for you implicitly. The user should also be given the privilege to edit a list in case the user wants to change the title or any other thing that corresponds to a list. So user should be able to do that as well. User should be able to view all of the lists that are available on the board. And of course, user should be able to remove a list. But before a user is basically removing a list, since if the list does not have any cards, then I guess that is okay. But if the list is having at least one card, then you should be giving a small warning to the user that if you try to delete this list, all of the cards would be deleted. So how you want to proceed, you can probably give an option the user to move all of the cards from that list to some other list before deleting it, or some sort of these things can happen. And here we expect you to also implement export functionality. So export functionality is specific to list here. That means when the user will click on the export button that is available on this dashboard, then the system or the application should be able to download the data that is related to list. That means how many lists are available on the user's dashboard, what all are the titles for those lists, and any other attributes that you would have in your list models. So those things have to be formatted in the form of a CSV and should be downloaded in the user's machine. So this is how the export option is going to work. But this export option must not be a synchronous operation. It has to be implemented as a backend job. So there is a specific slide to address this job issue. So I'll be taking that there. Similarly, we have a card management feature here. So with the card management, well, I'm not actually looking at the chat questions as of now. Well, we'll probably take these questions once we are done with the PPT here. Okay, so yeah, how the card management is going to work. Here, the user should be given the privilege to perform CRUD operations on the cards. That means user should be able to add or create a new card to any list. User should be able to change the card contents at any time. User should be able to change the deadline of a card as well, or should be able to change the status of that particular card from status to pending, from pending to completed or even overdue. And of course, the user should be able to remove or delete a card. And here, the export option is specific to a list. The previous export option that we saw was specific to a user or was specific to the dashboard. That means whatever lists are visible on the dashboard, those should be exported. But this time, this export is specific to a particular list. That means clicking on this export button, what should it do is, it should download the data related to that particular list only. That means what all are the cards created inside that list, and what all are the things or what all are the attributes that you want to give as information to the user with respect to those cards. So there are basically two export things that are required. One is for the cards, the other one is for the list. And both have to be implemented as asynchronous operations. As I mentioned before, there is a separate slide for that. So we'll discuss that thing there. Now the summary page here. So as part of the summary, user should be able to see the stats or the analysis of his or her performance. Uh, it can be any easy representation that the user can easily understand. So it can be either in the form of pie charts, bar graphs, or any line charts that you can basically create here for the easiness of the user. So these are all the things that you should be mentioning on the summary page of this application. So uh, here we are going to talk about the batch jobs that you are required to implement as part of this application. So batch jobs are something that run automatically, that do not require any user interference, and these are basically what scheduled. That means the user should not interfere, and these will be automatically triggered when at whatever time they are configured for. So the first daily job is basically the daily reminder jobs. So now what is going to happen is a user is going to create list. User is going to create cards within that list. So you basically have to check that if any of the card, if even at least one card under a user's dashboard account is in the pending state, in that case, you should be sending a daily reminder to the user. Let's say at a particular time, say 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. in the evening, so that you can remind the user to visit the application and change the status of the card in case it is required. Now, this is where we were talking about the usage of Jinja. So just like we saw the previous job, there you were required to implement a job on a daily basis. That means you should be sending daily reminders to the users for changing the status of the cards. But this is a monthly job. That means this job should run on the very first day of every month. Again, you can decide the time, be it 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. or whatever it is. So what it should do is it should basically collect the data of all of the users that are available in the database, and it should basically create a customized or a personalized report for each of the user that exist in the database, and send all of those reports to the respective users email IDs. So for creating these reports, we have created a separate tutorial for that as well, and we'll be publishing it once we, introduce the prerequisites for learning these things within the course. So you will get to learn about how these reports can be generated. And for generating these reports, you can make use of Jinja, and you can create your template with the help of Jinja 2 module as well. So here Jinja 2 can work, but for UI, you are not supposed to use Jinja for this application. The next is going to be the export job. So here we are mentioning it to be user triggered. That means it is not a bad job. It is something that the user has to trigger. Okay. So like I was mentioning before, you should be having two export functionalities implemented in this application. One is for the list. One is for the cards within a list. So when we are saying list, that means you should be able to export all of the list related data. And when we are saying cards export, that means you should be able to export the card related data for a particular list, and you should be having separate interfaces for each of those to trigger. Okay, remember this is a user triggered job. That means the user has to trigger this action in order to get this started. However, the previous two jobs that we saw, the monthly job or the daily reminder job, those were the scheduled jobs. That means they will be triggered, or they will be triggered automatically whenever the suitable time will come. Okay. The other feature that is to be considered as the core requirement for this application is basically the performance. So as part of this performance, we are looking at how well you perform, or how well you basically implement caching for your API, so that you can improve the performance of it. Whenever you are using caching for your API endpoints, make sure that you also use a cache expiry for those. Now these are the recommended features. So here again, we have a backend job here. So this backend job is not a scheduled job. This is a user triggered job. So one thing is import. That means if the user does not want to create a list or create a lot of cards manually on the dashboard, what the user can do is you can basically allow an import functionality, so that once the import is completed, the system should be able to automatically generate a new list or new set of cards for the user, okay, based on the data that was imported. Apart from that, what we are looking at as part of the recommended feature is the well-designed PDF reports. So as we discussed about the monthly reports, you have to send the user's performance of a month on the very first day of the starting of a month in the form of a PDF, or it can even be the HTML like you send emails. But if you're sending it as a PDF and you also format it well, so uh, this will be considered as something recommended feature, and the benefits, if exist or if any, for this particular thing would be given to you. Apart from that, a single responsive UI for both mobile and desktop. So I believe that if you are using some frameworks like Bootstrap, then these frameworks should be sufficient, or you don't really need to worry about these things then, because if you are using such frameworks, then they will automatically take care all of these responsive things for you. It means if you are running this app on desktop or mobile, then the UI will automatically adjust, is what I believe. But again, you will have to test your application and make suitable changes whenever required if you want to get the benefits for this recommended feature. The styling and the aesthetics feature has been left optional here. So you can basically make your application aesthetically pleasing, but these may not carry any extra marks for you as far as this project is concerned. So how the evaluation is going to happen, I hope you all must be aware about it. You will be required to submit a brief report about your project, describing your project architecture, the technologies you have used, your DB design, or what all are the features that you have implemented in your application. Similarly, you will have to create a presentation video for your project that has to be submitted along with the project as well. Apart from that, okay, so this is something related to Viva. So I hope you all must be aware of that, because you all have completed Modern Application Development 1 project. Right now, we have mentioned that all code has to be submitted on the portal, but this might change as the project submission will somewhere start from November. So still there is some time remaining, and we are probably working on a different mechanism to accept the project submission. So right now we are not sure about it, but in case we are able to get it working, so there will be a separate mechanism for the project submission, and you won't be required to submit your all the source code on the portal. But again, that is not certain as of now. So these are the instructions. So we will probably freeze this problem statement on or before 30th of September, after which we'll be communicating all of the changes that we'll be making to this PPT via proper announcements. And, yeah. All right. So this is basically an overview of this entire problem statement for Modern Application Development 2 course, and I hope you would have gotten a basic idea of what we are expecting from this project. I think now we can start taking up questions. So whoever has the questions, you may please raise your hand, and we'll come to you one by one.
Just can you first check up the chat questions, please?
Okay. So how does the user confirmation work? So which confirmation you are referring to here?
Deleting the cards from the list that is being deleted.
Okay, okay. So what should happen is, let's say the moment user clicks on the delete button for a particular list, so you can show a small pop-up to the user as a warning that deleting this list is also going to delete all of the cards from this list. So make sure you transfer all of those cards to some other list before you delete this particular list. Or even if you go one step ahead, instead of telling the user to manually shift those cards from one list to another, you can even implement this functionality as part of the delete feature itself. That means just ask the user that to what list you want to move all of these cards to, and the system will automatically do that for you and will delete this particular list. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. I assume import needs to be implemented as well. So import is a recommended feature. It is not a part of the code requirement as far as this project is concerned. Please please explain export option for cards again. So the way export option is going to work for cards is, so cards are something that are specific to a list. That means a list is basically a collection of what? A list of various kind of cards. Now the statuses of those cards may be different. Of course, within a list, since there are multiple cards, so each card may be having a different status. So what do we mean by exporting exporting option for cards is, that means you will have to export the data that is specific to all of the cards present in a particular list. So say I created one list called daily activities, and inside that list I am having 5 cards. So what you need to do is you need to export the data that is related to those 5 cards. You don't need to worry about the other cards that are present in other list. If you are clicking on the export button for a particular list, then you should be exporting those cards related data, and you should not be worrying about the data about other cards that are present in the other list. So this question was posted by Suyash. So is that okay, Suyash? Did you get it?
Yes, sir, I got it.
So also, do we need to support multiple users export to them? Yeah, definitely. The application is supposed to be a multi-user application. So that's why I mentioned that when you are generating the monthly reports, so you will have to get the data of all of the users that exist in your database. So yes, this is a multi-user application. What is add to desktop feature? So here you need to make a PWA version of your application. So if you are developing your application with the help of Vue CLI, this is something that may not be very difficult for you. But for Vue CDN, this might look quite difficult as of now. So PWA is something that you will be studying going forward into this course as well. Will there be a tutorial for Flask login framework? Login framework, not getting it. Sashi Aditya, what do you mean by Flask login framework here? Which framework you are referring to?
Sir, I guess it is under Flask security to for the authentication part. So it is called as Flask login, I guess.
Okay. I think that part has already been addressed in the modern application development 1 course also.
Yes, sir, in one of the live sessions.
Well, in this course also, we'll be talking about Flask security, and we'll show you how you can set up that authentication, token-based authentication specifically. We'll show you that as well as part of this course. Okay, I guess I uh, have not walked you through the wireframes. Maybe I can just open the wireframes.
So if we talk about the functionality, like most of the core functionality which you have described in this problem statement was already been implemented in Man 1 project.
I was not able to hear you properly, Abhishek.
Okay, I'm audible right now.
Yes, it is better.
Yeah, so I'm saying most of the functionality which you described, like core functionality, so most of us have already implemented in Mad 1 project. Okay, so like there are some other requirement also, like which you have mentioned that Ginger template was not being used like for UI purposes. So like if we made the changes in the previous problem statement and submitted the same code, like will it work?
Yeah, that is okay. If you are able to satisfy the requirements for this particular project, that is absolutely okay. Fine, no issues.
Okay.
All right, so I think I can take this question. After that, I can go to the wireframe. So yes, Sahiti, Dhara, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, good evening. I'm not sure if this is the right place to ask this question, but I'm doing my Math 2 course right now, and I want to do my project next term. So is there anything that I need to do?
Yeah, actually, we are working out on this part. So we are trying to float a Google form to basically collect the data from all of you that who all are interested in doing the project in this term and who all want to take it up to the next term. After collecting that data, we'll look at that and we'll probably find out an efficient way to enroll you into the next terms project course.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. Well, have you any one of you has gotten any form?
No, I actually emailed support and I posted on Discourse, but there was nothing substantial like this. They just said we'll get back to you.
Okay, all right. I'll see what the progress of that is.
All right.
We'll
Thank you so much.
soon do that.
Thank you.
All right, so this is basically the login screen for your application. So the basic things that you require on this view to be present are name and password. Now this is something for login. If you want to implement the register functionality as well, definitely there will be some more things that you would be expecting from the user. But yeah, this is how the login should look like. Now once the user has logged in, and since this is a new user, assuming this is to be a new user who has just registered and logged in for the first time. So here there are basically no lists that are available on the user's dashboard. There are no cards available and all. So what you should have is you should basically have a button that should ask the user to create a new list. Remember, a card cannot be created if there is no list. Right? Firstly, the user has to create a list. Then only the user should be able to create the card. User cannot create a card before creating a list. Okay? So this is how user can create a list. And apart from that, there are some options available on the top right here: export, summary, and logout. So this export is for the list. That means clicking on this export button should be able to export the list related data to the user's system in probably a CSV format. So this is something that can help you in creating a list. So this is a basic view again, but you will require as part of the, or while creating a new list is basically the name, the title of that list, or any description that you want to provide to a particular list. Once that list is created, this is how it is going to look like. So the name of this list is basically to do, and here you can see that there is this export button available. So this export button is going to download all of the data that is specific to this particular list. So whatever cards or whatever tasks that are available in this particular list have to be exported. Okay. Similarly, here, like you can see, this is a kind of drop down here. So this can allow the CRUD operations to the user. For example, if the user wants to edit this particular list or the user wants to delete this particular list, so user can select any option from this drop down. Well, it need not be a drop down always. You can also have a edit or delete button placed somewhere on this list. That is also okay. So you can use this button here in order to create a new card. So this is how you can create a new card. For creating a new card, what you will require is basically the list for which you are creating that card, the title for that card, that a small description for that card, and of course the deadline. Well, this will be quite unlikely, but in case you want to mark the card as completed while creating it, you can do that as well. But what I would suggest you to do is basically omit this option while creating a card, and keep this option while editing a card. That means when you are editing a card, then you should be able to change the status of it to complete it. Okay. Yeah. So all right, so this is how you have created a card here. So this is a card. This is basically the title. This is some description, and this is the deadline for that card. Again, just like there is a drop-down menu available for the list, a drop-down menu also exists for this card in order to, give the users to perform edit or delete operations on the cards. You can also have a flag here or a button here somewhere that can directly let the user change the status of that card. For example, if you have a button here, say mark is completed. So in that case, user don't need to go to the edit card and change the status to completed. Instead, user can simply click on this button here and can change the status of this card. So this is how the dashboard will look if it is having multiple lists. So this export button, this export button is something that will be required, or that is going to download the list related data, and each list will be having its own export button in order to download the card related data for that particular list. And this is how the summary page is going to look like. So this is a summary, and it is showing you the summary for each of the list that you have created in your dashboard. So this is for to-do list. This is for a list that is created with name page. So similarly, you can think of any other representational method here and can design your summary or statistics page. So this was a basic wireframe. The link to this wireframe is also embedded in this PPT, in this slide, example wireframe slide. All right, so yeah, please do let us know in case you have any questions now. When is the project deadline? So right now this is tentative schedule. I will come back to you on the fixed dates for it. But for now, we are hoping to start the project submission from November 15th, and this will go on till January 15th. That means the project submission window will be open for a duration of 2 months, from November 15th to January 15th. Summary will be a back-end job or front-end job? No, it is not supposed to be a job. I don't know what do you mean by front-end job. So this is just like another view for you.
Sir, Mudin is here.
Yeah.
Actually, what I meant was, could we render this, make the graph in the front end, or we can make it back end? That I'm trying to say.
What do you mean by make it via backend? I'm not able to understand.
No, actually, we have to show summary as some bar chart or pie chart,
Yes.
or
Yes.
right. So that we should render at front end.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, right. So we cannot make that in backend and send us image
From the backend, you can only get data.
data, right? JSON.
So what you can do is you can generate the images, you can save it somewhere in your file system and use those images in your front end.
Okay, right. Understand.
Any other questions related to project? Chart.js probably is allowed in this project. Yes, you can.
So,
Hello.
Yes, Abhishek.
So it's not a question, but it's a general.
You are not audible. Your voice is too faint.
Am I audible now? Hello?
Okay, yeah, please go ahead.
So I'm saying it's not a question, but I just wanted to recommend you something like for this term, like the project submission was started in somewhat in August, and it is like deadline is still due till September 30, right?
Yes.
So for this term also, like because we will get sufficient time after our end term exam.
I think you are still getting sufficient time. We are just
Yeah.
opening up the project submission window
Because-
15 days prior than what we did before.
Yeah, but that was the time when we are basically busy in doing for our end term exam.
Yeah, so end term exam I believe would be over by 10th of December. After that, you still have 1.5 months with you.
But like if you keep it like till Jan 30, that would be like we won't ask you to change it, no? Like this time we won't ask.
So currently, we are not sure that how many submissions we are going to receive. And if we receive a lot of submissions in the last week of the submission window, then it becomes difficult for us to conduct all of the bypass. And since we also have to prepare for the next term by that time, so that's why we want to keep it limited to January 15 as of now.
Okay.
Yes, Lakshmi Nandan.
yeah, am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are.
So I think files will be generated in two different ways. Like there is this monthly progress report and there is this export as CSV. So what I did in my Mad1 project was I manually like it was generating different files in the like project folder, and I was just fetching those files using Flask and sending them. So I think we should also take care of like deleting these files right after some time, because they will like take up server space or something.
If you want, you can also set up a batch job that is going to look at the file metadata, that if there is any file that exists let's say for a month or more than a month, in case if it does, then you can delete those files. Not necessary, but yes, if you want to implement this, you can do that.
Yeah, okay. Anyways, no one will be using this, so I guess this is not required. But just I was thinking, like, yeah,
Okay, so you are talking about the application that you will be creating, is it?
yeah.
That
So
means it won't be used by many other users except you.
no, just for this project, I won't be creating anything else. Just while creating in the last project, I was thinking like all this when every time I'm exporting, like these files are being generated, so they're taking up more and more space.
Mhm. All
So,
right, yeah, yeah, sure.
yeah,
So that's a good idea. You can set up a batch job that is going to look at the metadata of each of those files and delete them if required.
yeah, okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other question?
For this SMS or email, will we be using an API? Like, I think there is one API for SMS.
You can use third-party providers as well, but we'll be, teaching you one of those ways. That means we'll be using a Mailhawk service in order to send emails that won't be the real emails. That will just create a fake SMTP server for you. But if you want to send real emails as well, then you can use any third-party provider of your own choice. Doesn't matter. You can use SendGrid, one of the most
Oh,
popular.
okay, sir. Yeah, thank you.
Sir, one doubt.
Yeah.
API documentation is required.
Well, this is something that we expect you to be implementing as well, because when your Viva examiner is going to ask you questions related to API, and you are trying to show him or her with the help of the code, then I guess it may get complicated, because it is not really easy to look at someone else's code and understand it within a minute or two. But if you just show it with the help of a documentation, in that case, you are doing some kind of abstraction. You are taking away all of the unnecessary details and just showing how the implementation is working. So in that case, it would be definitely giving some benefits for you.
Okay, okay, right, sir.
Okay, let me stop sharing my screen as well. So do we have any other questions related to the project? All right, there seems to be no more questions. Narendra, do you want to add anything?
No, Vijay, thanks.
Okay. All right, then I guess if there are no more questions, we can. Uh, was having quantified self-help project, do I need to make the Kanban app? So if you are enrolled in this September term, then you will definitely have to make this Kanban application. The projects are going to change with the term. So that depends on in which term you are submitting your project. So maybe if you would have done the MAT2 project in the last term, then you could have submitted a quantified self application. Okay.
Sir,
Yeah.
uh, what is the kind of support that we can get? As in, when, like, right now, if I'm having 4 courses in this term, and all the 4 courses are having their kind of friendly live classes going on from 5 to 10 p.m. every day.
Correct.
Like, sit with your friend and do the work, and from 7 to 9, some expert will sit and solve the doubts.
Yes.
Can we have that kind of support in a way, like
You already have
twice?
it. We already have it. We have study rooms for AppDev 2 course as well, but I don't see anyone coming in those rooms. I
Yeah,
generally don't.
active two rooms are all right. If in that only the doubts can get solved.
No, means that is one of the thing that I'm mentioning here. Since you were asking about the other courses, so yeah, AppDev 2 study rooms are also available for you. You can make use of it if you want to. Apart from that, of course, you can reach out to us via Discord. You can reach out to us via live sessions, or in case if it is something urgent and no live session is scheduled nearby, you can directly write to us. I hope you all will be having our email IDs as well.
No. Can we have the email ID for this course?
Yeah, sure, definitely, why not?
It's the course code @onlinedegree.itm.ac.in, right?
Sorry.
The course name @onlinedegree.itm.ac.in.
I'm not
The
getting it. Do
course
you
code
need the course
name,
ID?
it was CS2008 @onlinedegree.itm, etc.
No, it's
So for
better if
this
you
course,
directly write. If you directly write
yeah.
to the instructors, it would be better.
Oh, okay.
So I hope you will be having the instructor IDs, right?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay, no issues.
Could you post it in the
Yeah, I
chat?
have just posted it in the chat.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So since you have raised this question here, so yeah, let me tell you what all are the things that you can get from our end. One is definitely Discords, live sessions. Apart from that, you can directly reach out to us, and there are study rooms also available for AppDev 2 course as well. So you can make use of those as well. However, I generally try to pitch in those rooms whenever possible, but I don't see a great number of people coming in there. So, all right. Okay, looks like we are done for today. So I guess we can close this session as well. So thank you everyone for joining with us in this session. So we'll be
Thank you,
meeting
sir.
tomorrow with a regular live session schedule. So till then, bye bye. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir.